Hi, my name is Erin, and I am demonstrating my lesson plan for science. My activity is called Sink or Float, and it is geared towards kids 5 years old. And my overarching goal is to introduce the concepts of density and buoyancy, and to have my students make predictions about items, whether or not they will sink or float. They'll have the opportunity to make theories, test their theories, and then record their findings. This is aligned with the Preschool Learning Foundation's Science 1.5, which is to demonstrate an increased ability to make predictions and check them. And that's for the 60-month-old 5-year-olds. My two objectives for this lesson plan are that my students will be able to identify characteristics of an object and relate them to their ability to sink or float. So we'll introduce buoyancy as one of our vocabulary words in this lesson, and then the students will be able to observe and record their findings. The assessment for this, they'll be able to use two of the vocabulary words, heavy, light, hard, soft, if they are able to dense or buoyant, depending on the development of the 5-year-old. And they will be able to assess the characteristics of an item and make a prediction for the sinking or floating. I have a few different charts that we'll be using, and they're up on the wall for demonstration purposes. This is a small group activity, so it will be done at a table. And materials that we need are a container, a plastic container, similar to this. This one has holes in it, so I didn't fill it with water for this demonstration, but something like this that you can see through, but is also waterproof, so it won't leak anywhere. So that will be presented on the table, as well as some predetermined loose parts. This one will have a pine cone, a rock, and then either a ping pong ball or one of the ball pit balls. We'll introduce this lesson by inviting the students to the table for the activity, and teacher will hold up a rock and say, "What can you tell me about this rock?" And we'll have a little rock paper. This will be on the table, and I'll record whatever they say. It's hard, it's an oval, it's gray, it's heavy. This item will be passed around the table. Again, there'll be 3 to 5 students at the table, so we should be able to keep the attention of the students. And then write down what we have for the vocabulary words that they come up with, and asking open-ended questions to build the vocabulary. So if they say it's hard, we can say, is it dense? Does it feel like there's air inside of it? And then we're going to predict. We're going to write our prediction, whether we think it's going to sink or it's going to float. And then we'll introduce the ball, a little ping pong ball or one of those light ball pit balls, and we'll do the same on the ball sheet of paper. We'll write down characteristics. They may say orange, they may say light, they may say airy, they may say squishy because it does have a little bit of bounce to it. And then we'll write down our prediction, whether they think it's going to sink or float. So once we've concluded that conversation, we'll take each of the items and put it into the container of water. See what happens. Ooh, ah, very exciting. And ask them to observe what happened. What happened? They may say it got wet. They may say it sank. They may say it float. So that will be the beginning of the introduction to the activity. And then I'll have the variety of loose parts. I selected a pine cone for our next one. And so they'll tell us, what do you think about this pine cone? What can you tell me about this pine cone? And then this one will have a little bit of a different chart. It'll have a T chart, and we'll be able to tally and say how many think it will sink and how many think it will float. So we'll make tally marks for each to represent each student. And we can also incorporate math into this. So that's a really good addition to the science lesson. After we do that, I'll ask the students to find a loose part item within the classroom that they think will sink. So it'll be specific to what you think will sink. And they can have free range over the classroom, but we want to think about things that are water safe. I have a few examples. If they want to go into the house area, they could get some little wooden pieces of food or plastic food, some metal utensils. If there's a loose part of like the little dry macaroni there, we can do that. The art area, they might find scissors or craft sticks or pencils. If they could go into the art area and maybe find some gems. The math area, we have the geometric shapes that they could find. Counting bears are also a nice loose part item. Science area, they could find some little bugs or insects that they want to bring. Block area, we could see Lincoln logs, wooden blocks, we could see some foam blocks. So the possibilities in the classroom are pretty much endless. We could also just kind of focus on balls or a different characteristic. You could do marbles or like a squishy ball, or this is one of those magnet balls from the science area as well. So you want to invite the students to pick one or two or three items and bring it back to the table. And since it's a small group activity, we'll have the time to say, tell me about this. So as they're naming the characteristics, we can write it down on another piece of blank paper. Again, this will be on the table for the students to see, so we'll record. And then the other pieces will be available for them to compare and see common vocabulary words. So we can reference back and forth between the rock was heavy, the rock was dense, the ball had more buoyancy to it. So we'll kind of write down vocabulary words and then make our prediction and hypothesize whether or not we think that the object will sink or float. And we'll be able to test all of the different items that the students have, and they'll also be able to have a mini sink or float. Each student will have a sink or float chart in front of them so they can tally mark if they think an item will sink and tally mark if they think it'll float. And then once they test their prediction, they can either circle for they got it right, or they can put an X through it that they got it wrong as part of their observation. And this will continue on and on and on as they test different items and have interest in the event, in the activity. The closing for this will be to test the children, to take the time to see if we've been able to measure the goals, what they can tell us about each of the items that they selected. Is it something that is hard? Is it something that is small? Is it something that are large? And how those relate to the buoyancy and density characteristics that we've identified. And then we'll be able to see their actual sink or float charts that will tell us whether or not they were able to successfully predict. And then this will transition into a hand washing and then carpet event with music and movement. There's a really fun song that I found called Sink or Float, and that'll reinforce the vocabulary words and allow for some movement, you know, things that are floating, things that are sinking up and down, and those kind of things. This is developmentally appropriate because it introduces science concepts, inquiry, observation, prediction, comparing, and all of those other things. So my kids love this activity. As I was getting it ready tonight, they wanted to do it. And also my students in my class really enjoy this activity. It's a fun, hands-on, playful science activity. Thank you.